And with kids, it's so difficult and complicated because they live in the same house with you. They're not somebody that you can just be like, set boundaries against, say, I'm only going to see them Monday and Tuesday. That doesn't work. They're in there all the time. And a lot of people get rubbed the wrong way when you say your kids don't come first. They can't. And if they do, then you're going to have a really hard time in your intimate partner relationship.
Welcome to the Relationship Psychologist podcast.
Tune in every Thursday to learn with us as we interview experts.
And laugh with us as we banter about friendship.
And take action by implementing the tools and advice we provide to you each week to level up your personal relationships.
I'm Dana Mullen.
And I'm Alicia Hinger.
We are soul sisters, besties, and psychologists on a mission to change the culture of relationships.
Your journey to becoming more supported and connected starts
right now.
Okay, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, hello.
Teaching about thirds, managing thirds, because this comes up in parenting. This comes up often in our discussion with couples, or how to teach this with couples. Probably any team, imagine it could come up with teams and coaching. I'm sure this could filter into lots of different discussions. So I could think of lots of examples in my head, but let's talk about thirds.
Yes. Well, I think in any relationship, really, whether that's like with a kid, with an athlete, with a coach,
business partner,
100%.
Yeah.
Like it's absolutely relevant.
Yeah.
In any place you're going.
So for me, I think the foundation, how I teach this to people initially is when I think of like those relationships, business coach, your partner, whatever, all the things, you have to have, first of all, everyone knows it's my only focus of relationships is secure functioning. So you have to have an agreement, or you have to have a shared vision of we're going to do this thing, this business, this relationship, and we have to have an idea of like, this needs to be secure. And what does that mean? It means we have social contracts. We have contracts. And we do things to create security here. So that, because if I'm worried about what you're doing all the time in a relationship or in business, that's a lot of resources I'm going to waste. So if I just know what we're doing and we've agreed to these things, and we can negotiate and change our mind to see what works better in the future. But if I know you're doing these things and I'm doing these things to make this thing called the relationship or whatever this thing in the business of life work, then I can free up resources to do those things, do other things. So it's a sales pitch first on like, do we agree that if you and I are in a relationship, we're going to agree to do these things with contracts we're going to follow and negotiate as we need to do the things to make this secure. And then there's all the topics we get into later, but all the topics around what that means. And one of those things is it doesn't work well if you and I have an agreement that we're in a relationship and then we bring in Alannah and she's like, oh, I think we should do differently. And we're always default. Then who's in the relationship?
Right.
That's what we call a third. Yeah. If you and I in a relationship and then you're, the in-law. So that's a common one in my office. Hence this week, it's been the theme this week. Right. Couple recently where they came in and she was feeling pretty dismissed. So they, it's summertime, they're doing vacations. And so during vacation time, she feels like her husband always defaults to his family first. And she's like, I literally think if it came down, if there was a fire, you'd save them and let me burn. That was her analogy. I'm like, ooh, that's pretty, pretty specific analogy. And so, and he couldn't deny it because that was what he was doing behaviorally and probably how he was feeling in his body. And again, compassion, like you're raised with these people and we're, they're your family.
Yes.
But then there's a thing we do as adults, we go, oh, we become a new family and we create which just takes some time to create an idea of like, oh, it's you and I, or whatever. It could be a throuple, I don't care, whatever, whoever's in the bubble. We decide who the kings and queens of the ship, of the throuple, or the bubble, or whatever it is, is. And we don't allow outsiders to influence us without our permission. And we decide it's you and I rule, right? And we can vet and we can have people, like I think there's a difference between having community and people around us that support the relationship and then asking questions. For example, therapists, right? So we do for a living. So if you're with your therapist, my vision is the relationship. And so I'm going to give you feedback and, direction on how to make that relationship strong. And then knowing the difference between who's in your community that's supporting the relationship and who's in your community that's actually supporting the individual,
right?
Versus the relationship, which is dangerous.
Yeah.
Right, pulling you out.
And I think there's when I have individuals or couples come, and even athletes too, when they come into my office and we talk about these thirds, I think it's important that like thirds at most times, it's like, you're having an affair or there's some emotional or sexual or physical connection to this person. A lot of people, that's what you label as a third. Yeah. Like as a third can be many things.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a thing, like you said, that takes away from that secure, sturdy, as a word we used on the last podcast, that sturdy place of security between you and I.
Yeah.
that like seeps out my resources, that I am now unsure. Maybe I feel this like a little sense of betrayal or a lack of trust, or I'm just feeling like jiggly or prickly within the kind of system or this kind of ecosystem we've created together. So a third can be the gym. The third can be
a coworker,
a coach, a coworker. It can be someone you're having an affair with. It can be literally,
it could be your kid.
Absolutely.
It could be anything. It could be your phone, actually.
Yes.
It could be like Candy Crush, whatever game, it could be your phone. Like, it was the joke in my house for a long time that, Jay, my husband's third, is NFL. So the NFL season, I'm like NFL widow, right? It's kind of like the joke. But so we had to create agreements around the transparency of, I get that you really get fulfilled from that thing called the NFL. Like, you just love that thing, and it's like it's his language. I get fulfilled from things that don't. Okay, so what's our agreement of transparency? Like, how are you going to do that? That doesn't make me feel prickly or jiggly or insecure. How are we going to have agreements on these things that go ahead and do that thing with transparency that we agree to, that fills you up, that fills them up individually, but it's got to be an agreed upon thing. So if you're getting filled up by that thing that makes me feel insecure, that's an issue.
Yes.
I mean, negotiate that.
And with kids, it's so difficult and complicated because they live in the same house with you. They're not somebody that you can just be like, set boundaries against. Say, I'm only going to see them Monday and Tuesday. That doesn't work. They're in there all the time. And a lot of people get rubbed the wrong way when you say your kids don't come first. They can't. And if they do, then you're going to have a really hard time in your intimate partner relationship.
And that's not content based, because people get so stuck on that word and be like, okay, so today I had a couple today, for example. And so he was on metaphorically on fire. He was distressed about a situation, and kind of in a third situation, actually. And so he found some texts and how he had an issue with these texts. And so it was on fire. And so she was like, we gotta deal with the kids. And so she abandoned him and was like, we'll talk about it later. Didn't even say it, was just like, deal with it. We have kids to deal with first. Instead of going, I see that you're on fire. Negotiating that first, and then be like, I got to deal with these kids because they're little, like they're, under 5, these 3 kids of theirs. So I got to go deal with these kids. However, you're my priority. Or something like, we could let them just starve. Any adult parents are like, no, let's go feed the kids. But yeah, that's the same deal. I got to contain this fire. I got to do what I can do to put this fire out first. So it's not about timing. People say, oh, put my relationship first. Yeah. It doesn't mean that kids require more time, because they do. They're just more needy. They're dependents. But having that idea, that like criteria, that like, structure, my relationship is first. I put this fire, because really, I said to her, okay, so don't put the fire, but she didn't. I'm like, now it's a week later, still burning. So the ship is almost sinking because the fire is still burning, and your kids are in that burning. They're in that fire. They're feeling all this adrenaline that you guys are having in the system.
And so do you think, like, I'm in my head, I'm mulling now, but like when we talked about in our last podcast, it's like creating that safety and security in self, and then again, going into your relationship and then creating that space, that when it comes to managing thirds, if there isn't that internal or that kind of place where you feel safe and secure, that you know what, hold on. My parts are showing up to say, abandon ship, he's on fire. This is something, quote unquote, I've done. I feel sticky. I don't have my own sturdiness to deal with this. I'm going to deal with the kids. So I think it becomes like in my brain, I'm going, I don't have kids, but that might be an easy scapegoat.
For sure.
Like, oh, so sorry you're having feelings. Gotta go.
Totally. Totally.
Right?
Which we do with our kids. So sorry you're having feelings. Go do a time out in your room, come back when you're feeling better. You just said to them, I said, do you do this with your kids? They're like, yeah. I'm like, of course you do. So when your kids have big feelings, what do you do? They like a timeout. So I'm like, so you send your kids by themselves, abandon them, neglect them, and they're having a big feeling, which they did to your husband. Right. And she was like, oh, so it taught them, that secure with kids and with partner at the same time. And it is because again, kids require more time. They're little, they're dependent, and they were hungry. I get it, but they're not going to starve in a 5-minute matter. To be like, hey, or even if they're crying, as long as no one's in danger, there's not a literal fire happening, no one's dying. I can pause and be like, hey, sweetheart, I see you're on fire. I'm really sorry. We got to deal with this. And I said, I'd be like, do you want to deal with this right now and let them starve tonight? And of course he was like, no, like, of course I'll say let's go feed the kids. Okay. Right. Or can you give me like 10 minutes, or can you give me like half an hour to get them settled and come back in? But there's all kinds of ways to negotiate that. But you're this relationship is where our kids live in. This is what feeds our kids. So this has to be secure, or the whole situation, the whole ship isn't secure, including my kids. Their lives depend on that as well.
So having that sturdiness allows for that space to like, okay, I know that I'm mismanaging this thing, or we are. I have sturdiness here that I can like sit in my own stuff, and I can see you and actually see you, so I can hear you and receive what you have to say, and then we can negotiate the space of what that third can look like. Because I think a lot of times too, when you think about it, if most people come in my office and a third is like another person that is not agreed upon within the relationship, that they're like gone.
Yeah.
Right. The third, if you're the mismanagement of third, is that the dealing with it is like, get rid of them.
Yeah.
The reality is like, that doesn't deal with the underneath
Yeah.
of like, I feel like I was betrayed, or I wasn't seen, or I wasn't showing up, and now I don't feel good enough. And there's all the narratives that come with it.
Yeah.
So I think most times in my office, it's like, okay, we deal with it. And it's a tango. It's
Yeah.
not one person showing up to the dance. There's two of you. So what was, again, like I've said many times I've talked, minding that gap.
Yeah.
So what happened between everything was really great and now it's falling apart?
Yeah.
What was the space in between there? And let's go back there.
Yeah.
And that's when you have that sturdiness. You can go, oh, right. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Hit the pause button and we can come together and negotiate that space a little bit differently.
Yeah. Which creates safety.
Yes.
So I don't know what happened or why it happened. And we just get rid of the third. I'm still sitting there unsafe being like, well, how did that happen in the first place? Because there's so many reasons. It's not just linear. There's not just one reason that happens. It could be, often if you tell about affairs, often in my office, people come in and focus on the affair, but I go back and go, okay, so that thing that's happening, that symptom, sometimes, a lot of the times, is because of thousands of slivers that weren't dealt with.
Yeah.
And so this disconnection, lack of intimacy, all these things were happening over here that weren't attended to, created an avenue. Not that it's okay, it's not an excuse, but it just is symptomatic of, same with alcohol or same with addictions, symptomatic of what's not being dealt with over here. So opening up that door and like, what's not being dealt with here. Or you just, let's use a work example. You start with like, we're dealing with hearts about work and we're bonding over this HR thing, right? So we're doing these like work things and now we're going for lunch to discuss work. And then I'm saying, oh, I appreciate you. And by the way, how's your family? And now we're just like crossing boundaries really slowly. And now some are having these texts that are not about work anymore. They're about family and my burnt outness and feeling disconnected. Right? So just such a subtle path into that where now it doesn't feel safe anymore. Again, that doesn't mean that the relationship isn't secure. Maybe it is, but I'm not paying attention to all of those things. So having contracts of what do we do? How do we manage thirds is such an important contract. Have work friends, have female friends, have guy friends, whatever, same-sex friends that maybe, okay, have those friends, but what are the boundaries? What are our agreed upon boundaries with those people?
And it's interesting. I had a conversation with a client too, being like, okay, so you have this third and you're going to come together and you're going to negotiate the space together. When in relationship, if there's an actual like physical person that is a third that's causing some tension or some insecurities, is that the person that should be a part of your bubble?
Right.
Because there comes a point of like, what do you stand for?
Yeah.
And we talked about that the last time we were in here, was like finding out who you are and having that sturdiness in you is going, okay, I have someone that we're kind of crossing some boundaries. Is that someone that should be a part of my inner circle? Because to me, how I define respect, how I define family, how I define friends, and that like intimate friendships and relationships I have outside of my marriage goes, Erin's married and her wife is awesome. And I wouldn't do anything to impede on that because I love Erin.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So what is love? What is family? What is friendship? Like getting on that page. It's not necessarily writing a rule book for your marriage or for your partnership that says, we only speak this way and to these people.
Yeah.
And maybe it comes down to that because there is a mismanagement. But from the get-go, it's saying, me as a human, I want people who respect my relationships. And that so my wife can feel sturdy and secure and saying, like, I know that Erin's surrounded by good people because good people have good people.
Yeah.
Right.
That's so important. Like, that's such important. And we learn that through time and space, right? But good people have good people, and good people have people that support their values. They align with their same vibration of what energy and of relationships and safety, security, trust, what that stuff means. And so if you're having, this could be a good point to look at, like go through your like people that are in your life and ask yourself, like, how closely do my friends, who I consider friends or family even, align with my core values in my relationship? So are they the people that support my relationship?
It's a real life Facebook friends curating.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And having that circle of like the dartboard circle of like, okay, if they're core, if I let them really, and I share intimate stuff with them, they, like Dana, for example, right? Like she's a colleague of mine. We're also very, very close. And so my husband knows if I'm going to talk to her about stuff, she's going to push me back to relationship and vice versa. Right. That's what we do for a living, but also that's who we are. And so he totally trusts her. That I could tell her stuff, and I don't share every single detail with her either. But even if I did, for some reason, she's going to push me back towards my relationship because that's what we stand for. Right. So who is people in your life that push you back towards that relationship that is safe and secure, that support the relationship? And who are the ones that are like, yeah, don't worry about that. Let's go do this. Let's go do this. Don't call your wife. Let's go drinking or let's go golfing. Like, right. Let's do again, slippery slope.
Yes. And who do you want to be?
And who do you want to be?
Yeah. Right. So like and I show up my perfect day, the day that I feel aligned and I'm super content and vibrating at the best place possible. who are the people I surround myself with that challenge me to go back to that space, not pull me out of it.
Mhm.
I'm having challenging moments where I vibrate high and I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. And then the people around me go like, hey, Erin, take a breath. Or like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to make you uncomfortable. Because I know Erin says that she likes to do the things that she fears the most. Those are the things she wants to lean in. I'm gonna keep shoving her that direction.
Yeah.
Okay. Or, hey, she's actually really scared. I think I should probably surround her,
Yeah.
give her a hug, or like
Yeah.
do something. Those are the people you keep close because
Yeah.
you've shared that space.
Yeah.
And that's where I go back into myself and going, part of my thing is integrity, which means, excuse my language, but like no bullshit.
Yeah.
If something's up for me, I say it. There is way more kind
Yeah.
than it is to sit back and go, I hope they figure it out.
Yeah.
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 No, everybody's stuck in their own stuff.
Yeah.
And I see that so much with parents, because maybe they had a really secure relationship before they had kids,
Mhm.
but so many people don't have those conversations of like, okay, so what if we have no sleep? What if the kid is just like driving
we
us
have no
insane?
sleep.
Exactly.
It's a guarantee.
Exactly. So there's all these wonderful skills that you may have had prior to having kids, but what do they look like when you've had no sleep, when you haven't eaten, when you've had a kid screaming at you for 6 hours? Like, how do you
touched
treat
out,
each other
sure.
when you can't escape that because you have to stay there with it? And kids are not the best thirds sometimes. They're like
They're the
I say,
hardest, right?
totally. And I say they're like the hugest cock blockers.
Yeah.
Totally.
For sure, for sure. Well, it's true because not because of all those things are true. You're
Yeah.
exhausted, you're touched out, all the things.
Yeah.
And when there's a third in there, it creates unsafety.
Yes.
And maybe I'm speaking, maybe I'm being biased here, but I think for many women, self-included, when there's a safety issue and I don't want to be vulnerable anymore, my desire will go out the window.
Yeah.
Because now I don't want to be intimate with you and vulnerable with you because I'm not feeling super safe in our bubbles. So my desire is gone.
Yep. And when, as a mom, and I hear this from moms all the time, you're giving all day. You're giving to your kids, you're taking care of your kids. And this is probably for dads too, take on that primary care role. When your partner comes in and intimacy is treated as another transaction, it's ick.
Yeah.
Like you don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate that? And having those conversations before having kids is really hard because it's hard to imagine yourself in those spaces.
Yeah.
So coming to therapy when you're in the thick of it, being like, whoa, this is nuts. How do we do this? Can be really helpful to have another person kind of walk you through what that can look like.
Or before. Ideally
Or before. Yeah, absolutely.
Come before the thick of it.
Before,
So give you some skills and prepare you for this is probably going to happen.
Yeah.
These little parasites, we love them called children. They're going to suck the system very dry. So
Yes.
how are you going to maintain some liquid in there? What are you going to do to maintain that shit?
And learning how to repair.
Yeah.
Because inevitably when you guys are both at your wit's end,
Yeah.
stuff gets said, things happen. And you have to be able to know how to repair that very quickly. Because like you said earlier, or else the house is on fire for a week.
Yeah.
And you both feel terrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And then like Erin said, then you use your kids sometimes as an easy way out.
Yes.
Because I'll just go repair with them or I'll just go do the thing
Yeah.
for them because they appreciate me and they're cute and they're my kids. And so I'm almost using them despite, right? In spite of this relationship. You got to lean into discomfort. You got to lean into, I'm grumpy here. I don't feel good here.
Yeah.
And I'm mad at you. And I don't feel, I got to lean in and be like, and our ship depends on this. So what are we going to do to fix this? We can do this.
Yep.
When I think what's interesting is like when you talked about intimacy too, because I had a client, we had this discussion as well, is that for women particularly after they have kids, again, don't have them, but in my experience with clients is like, you change
Everything.
the moment you conceive. Your physical body is absolutely different in that second.
Yeah.
Let alone when you find out. And then as you start growing and your hormones and all these things, you have this moving little alien thing inside your belly.
Yeah.
That's
You're sharing space with somebody else.
100%, right? Like, so when then you get into this life with your partner and you're raising these little parasitic tyrants and you're trying to make it happen. And then intimacy goes out the window, that safety to actually connect. And then also, what do you like?
Yeah.
Completely changes.
Yeah.
Completely.
Totally.
Like,
changes, yeah.
and that connection to now when, my husband or my partner comes and gives me a kiss, it feels like a demand. That there's something on the other end of it. There's some sort of string. Oh no, I was going to want to have sex.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Right. That like, I don't feel good in my body. I don't want to do that. I don't feel good in my skin or I feel fat or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I get into that big thing that it's like, oh, what the foundation is like, get back into like, what do you like?
Yes.
Slow it down. What do you
Yes.
like enjoy?
Because it's changed. Your body is
Yes.
totally changed. And when your partner's just like, giving you the kiss and there's expectation, you're feeling the ick. Partner advice is to pause and go, if they don't know what they like, can I help them? Can I rub their feet?
Yes.
Can I like go bath the kiths? Like maybe porn for moms is like, I did the dishes and
Yeah,
bath the kids for you.
totally.
And Norman's like, I'm in, I'm ready now. Like you just gave me
Yes.
some space. I ran you, I bath the kids and took
Go
care of the
back in
stuff.
with your gray sweatpants on and no shirt and a
Right?
backwards hat.
Yeah,
You're good
Right?
to go.
Done. Put the kids to bed early. You're like, oh, having space to actually feel like a woman again. You're like, okay, there's nurse kids all day. Don't touch this part, but these are off. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember watching you in a session, Alicia, and you gave the scale. You said from 0 to 10, and you had a partner, like you're sitting on a couch together, and you're like, just rub her feet.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What does that feel like? On 0 to 10.
Yeah.
Right. And having the partner ask, like, how do you like that? What's the scale there? Oh, it's a 3.
Yeah.
And then saying, oh, okay, how do I make that a 3.5?
Yeah.
You're not naked. You're not
Yeah.
looking at climax. You're not looking to have penetrative sex, oral sex, nothing. It's just, I'm rubbing your feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To give you pleasure.
Yes.
That's just it. Like if I rub your feet this way, you're like, it's a 3, can I make it 3.5? Just for the sake of your pleasure. And it makes the person receiving go, I actually don't pay attention. I'm so busy and so drained. I have no idea to pause and go, oh yeah, actually, if we just do it like this, I'd feel a little bit better. Because now I'm paying attention to what I actually like again.
Yes.
Yeah. Huge.
So that I think that connection to self, which again, that my brain goes off and like thirds can be that like this
Mhm.
third of like, I don't actually know what I like anymore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the like elephant in the room of like, we don't have intimacy or not as much as we used to, or it has to look different, but we're still trying to shove it back into the same box we were
Yeah.
in
Yep.
before. It's not, it shouldn't be that way. And how
No.
beautiful that it isn't.
Yeah.
You have these little magnificent little bipedal tyrants running around sucking all your energy. However, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And I should be different.
Absolutely.
I don't want the same normal.
Yeah.
Because we evolve. If I'm not evolving, then what am I doing?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think there's that third for me is like the expansion of like your mind and how you move forward in new and in change.
Yeah, and that's huge too, because so many people feel like, well, it should go back to the way it was before. I'm done having kids. It's been like a year. Why don't I feel the same?
Yeah.
I must be broken.
Because you are not the same.
Yeah.
No,
You're not, nothing is
Not
the
even
same.
close.
Yeah.
So like I've talked to people who have pain during sex. That's not normal.
Yeah.
Like go see a physiotherapist, go see pelvic floor.
Mhm. Check on your emotions and see if your
check
body's
your-
closing.
or
If
if you're like
your yoni
tense.
is like
yeah,
responsive to your energy as well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's lots of things that if it doesn't feel right, then maybe just like start again, start over, start from the beginning. What did you guys do when you first met each other
Yeah.
to figure out what you liked?
Yeah.
Try that.
Go back to dating.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Keep dating.
Yeah.
It's really important to keep dating. And dating could just be, I rubbed your feet. That could be dating.
Yeah.
I brought you a coffee and we have to sit outside. It doesn't be, don't have to leave the kids. They can be sleeping,
Mhm.
but keep dating because dating is, I'm getting to know you and paying
Mhm.
attention to, I'm learning you. I think that's what dating is. I'm going to ask you questions of what's your favorite food, even though I've been married 25 years. I'll be like, what's your favorite food again? Oh yeah, it changed last week. I just tried this new thing. Like keep dating
Mhm.
because it creates a bit of novelty and it creates that space of we are our unique thing that's our from being parents.
And you still care.
Yeah.
You still care to know that other person because it's so easy to get into that rut, the routine of just like we go to work, we come home, we feed the kids, we go to bed, and it's well, like
Yeah.
there's no excitement there. So if you're
Mhm.
still showing that you care to get to know the other person, that can go a long way.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
And what does that care look like for them? So
Yeah.
that's important. Like a big thing in like it's like the love languages and all the things. And in my opinion, I think all 5 of them, or however many there are, everybody wants them.
Yeah, sure.
There's not one, maybe one lands more.
Yeah.
But if
That's
I come
wonderful.
home from a day from starting at 7:30 in the morning, get home at 8:30, my wife wants to give me a hug and physical touch. I'm like, for the love of God,
Give me a sec.
give me a second. Or if she's like, oh, like you like really good conversations because I'm an intellect and I want to go there. And I get home
Like,
after
dibba.
yeah, and I'm like, boom. I have like one neuron firing. And it's
Yeah.
like, I actually want to sit in the dark, eat my dinner, and speak of nothing. Maybe listen to music. That's it.
Yeah.
But I have to be able to verbalize that to her.
Mhm. Not mind readers.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. So it's like you didn't grow telepathy overnight.
Yeah.
Just because you've been together.
No.
Whether that's for a month, a year, or 35 years.
Yeah.
It's you learn your partner every day.
Yeah.
And being able to sit in the space of like, it's okay that we butt heads. And this conversation is not going to feel great. But I know on the other end we'll have something to work with. And that feels so much better
Yep.
than saying like, well, tomorrow we'll try again. And hopefully she won't be that mad at me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And that work is a third because I didn't manage that third thing. It became
Mhm.
part of our relationship. We didn't
Mhm.
discuss instead of pushing it out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you. So for thirds, is there a space where we go, okay, this third is going to be here
Mhm.
for this amount of time?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm,
So
mhm.
like,
I think of an example yesterday I had.
yeah. So even for myself and my wife, we go like, okay, I'm starting a practice. It's going to be really busy.
Mhm.
Summertime is slower for her. We game plan of like, how do we get from when I graduated to now, how are we going to manage some of the things? How do we shift? What does housework look like? That kind of stuff that we kind of put on a timestamp, but there's like, it's going to get kind of jiggly in there. And come hockey season, when we coach together, things might have to dial back or have to be really firm on particular boundaries. Okay, so we have to be firm there. So let's work more during the summer for me, take sessions, do the things, so that come hockey season, I can kind of peel back and not feel quote unquote guilty or all those other things for finances or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
So do you think there's a space of that negotiation of
Absolutely.
that way? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's going to happen, right? In-law comes to visit, or you go to a work party and there's a thing there that you don't like, or that affects you. So having that discussion and negotiating. So when this third's going to be here for this period of time that we both are aware of, what are we going to do? That's how you manage it. We're not saying get rid of all the thirds. That's ridiculous. They're going to exist in your world. But how are you and I going to manage that our bubble feels safe and secure? We're going to negotiate, and it's got to be a win, fair, just for the relationship, not for each individual. It has to win. That's just to win each time. Yeah. So managing, negotiating, that's super important.
Right.
And it's a good conversation to have.
Yeah.
Instead of ignoring and saying, I think people don't have these discussions, and so they ignore them and they come and see us when they're like 10,000 feet deep in slivers of like, we didn't manage all these things and now I've disconnected and I don't like that person anymore. But there's all these things you could have done at the beginning to be like, I can see this is going to happen, or this is happening. Let's navigate, let's negotiate it.
Right. And I would presume, like, even with parenting, with like young kiddos, like I think like I have a couple clients now that are trying to like move kiddos into like their cribs into like a big girl bed or a big boy bed, and like there's like this sleep regression and this like fallback that ends up happening, that it's like that third, this particular event, it's not going to be forever. But if we go stand in the fire together and we're like, this is our lives forever, then it'll be our own demises. So like that negotiation too.
And what you guys did, like what you and Megan did, to say, well, we have this time period, we're gonna have to sleep with our kid longer, whatever, do the sleep thing again. And knowing that, what are we gonna do to put some deposits back in our account differently?
Exactly. Yeah, and so give an example for myself is my husband and I have one night a week where we get to do our own thing.
Nice.
So he goes and plays Frisbee, I do something else. So we always know that even if we're like knee deep in the crap and everything's going to hell, we know we can look forward to that day where we can just get out of the house and leave it behind.
Right.
So that's something that we do for each other. But coming back to the relationship, we also have to do that 1 or 2 things a week that we do for each other as well and together. Sometimes that's just having a drink on the back deck together and just listening to nothing because we're outside and there's birds and
there's no kids.
There's no kids. There's no sound machines. There's no beeping in the microwave. Like all these things that you're just in all day. You can kind of just shut it off for a little bit.
Yeah. No, I think it's important. I think, again, we don't give time to it, but it's not a time thing, but we have to put deposits in that account every day, ideally. To grow anything, it needs some attention, needs some fertilizer. And so just quiet time is deposits in that account. That we make time, ideally every day. People say we date once a week. I'm like, well, that's not going to sustain a relationship. Every day. What are the little things you can do every day to create a moment of time where we put a deposit in?
One thing that I've really liked recently that follow the Gottmans on Instagram, and their thing was a 6-second kiss. Love that so much, and it's such a really simple thing. But every time I do that, there's just like, if you feel it, it's different. It's not just that little bit and then you
no pecks and no pat
no
back.
I had my grandmother.
Exactly. My dog. People I don't really like, I'm like,
right. But that's that one little deposit that you can make where you're like, hey, you still like me, I still like you, we're in this together.
And this kiss is different than I give my grandmother. Between you and I. Yes. And same with the hug. Right? When someone's distressed, you're like, it's actually not soothing them. Hug them until you feel their body go, so take a breath. Okay. And now I really see it.
I think that's what they call the Disney hug. That's what it's been branded.
Oh, really?
Because the characters at Disneyland are not allowed to let go until the little kid lets them go.
Oh.
So they just keep holding them until the kid.
I've never heard that.
So.
I was going to say we call it the reunion hug.
There you go.
But more so it was like what I challenge clients to do when they're like, oh, like we're so busy and like we don't have sex and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, so like how do you connect? So this reunion hug, and I've talked about it before in the podcast, even with Megan, it was like, she'll come give me a hug and she like so desperately just wants to hug me. I am like vibrating, or vice versa. She'll hug me and I'll be like, okay, that's nice. And like all of me just wants to like, and like peel her off of my body. But the reality is like hug until you no longer want to let go. And then stay for an extra second.
Nice.
There's a caveat to that. If you're really in a nervous system distress, if you're really islandy, you want to hug knowing your partner, you want to hug your partner and know their body language, you want to let go before they let go. So we let them go, it leaves longing in their system. So it's a little bit of like, oh, actually, I want you back. So there's like so play it both ways.
Yeah.
Hug until you no longer want to let go. That's true, possibly. And try that one with your partner. If they're islandy, to be like, I'm gonna hug them and let them go first. It's on an island. And someone let them go first, I'm like, there's relief, and I'll hug longer the next time, or I'll reach out for more of a hug.
Right.
So you gotta know your partner.
You know that dance, yeah.
Yeah,
So typically for Meg and I, that would be like transition. So I'm from the other side. So like third is a dog, by the way.
Oh, a dog for dog warning. Literally.
So like I remember being so frustrated when we had moved in together and I had Rhea, and Meg would come home and get so freaking excited with a stupid dog, which I love her. She's not stupid, but I was so mad. He was like, just come hug me.
Yeah.
I've been waiting all day to see you, just like she has, and I'm second on the list. So that was the biggest thing. So what we introduced was that like reunion hug.
Yeah.
So in that space, it was like, oh, my nervous system felt okay. When I come home from work, maybe some really challenging, sessions, or maybe had a bad phone call with someone on my way home, or whatever it was, or maybe she did. There's that reading of like, ooh, things aren't really softening. I can feel her breath maybe get deeper. And I go, okay, she's okay.
Yeah.
She's still gonna vibrate a little bit, but I know if I hold on to her longer, it's gonna shorten that breath up again. So that space of, again, we've talked about it too, is like attunement.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, which takes time.
Yes, it doesn't happen overnight.
Yes.
It's a really slow process, and every day.
It's an everyday process.
Every day.
And if we just did that, there wouldn't be a problem with thirds. It's because we're not tuning in and we're disconnecting that thirds become a focus. That's really it.
Yeah.
Or the odd time where someone's just unaware and they're all of a sudden now in a work relationship, it's emotional affair, and they're like, oh, how did it even get here?
Right.
The minute you recognize it's even getting there, stop. Like hold yourself accountable to your own boundaries, to your own ethics, and like, oh, actually, I think like I'm a parent, so I'm always like, I'm gonna treat my partner the way I want my kids to be treated in their relationships.
Yeah.
So they're learning from me how to be in relationships. So I'm gonna treat their dad how I want them to be treated in the future. So I was like, so let's do the same thing. So would I want them to be treated this way? I want them to be having their partner do this? No. Okay, then I'm not gonna do it. So have whatever your ethics work for you. Maybe it's God for you, maybe it's whatever.
Yeah.
But who someone's watching, and you want them to have that same experience.
Right. And know that the love and the connection that you did have, it's not always been bad. There's a reason why you're there.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of the couples I work with is like, for me, an agreement is like, no more bullshit. It's the best of your capacity.
Yeah.
So if I am unwilling to manage the third in the way that we've agreed upon, or maybe we do, and then I start looking outside my marriage, or I start to do those things, call your own bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? Being like, oh man, I love her or him enough to say, I'm not showing up in the way that I agreed upon. And I love them enough to know, hey, I gotta let this go.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to hurt and it's going to feel sticky, but I love them enough to say that my clarity is more kind than having them sit here and feel insecure and gross and sticky and not good enough, and all the big narratives that stick around for a really, really long time. Right. And hence why I probably see a lot of people as well, but like have that space of saying, cut the crap.
Yeah.
Be honest. Start with yourself.
Yeah.
With yourself first. It's super scary to be honest to another person, 1,000%. You know, it might hurt them.
Yeah.
But if you can be honest with you and being like, I actually kind of like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or I don't want to do that. Okay. Yeah. Speak your truth.
Speak it. Be clear about it.
Yeah.
And then you can actually move forward from there instead of feeling like you're stuck, or that you can't move anywhere, or your partner doesn't let you do X, Y, or Z, when it's like, well, you never spoke about it.
Yeah.
You never spoke about it, and then they maybe didn't speak about their insecurity and about how that might scare them. Then you just become this like self-fulfilling prophecy on both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and even if you think one of those things that is a sticking point for you and your partner, your relationship, even if you think that thing is the most blatant, obvious thing in the entire world, you're like, how could you not see it? Still say it.
Yeah.
Still bring it up.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's really obvious for you because
it's not for them.
Really important to you, and they don't see it because they're in their own stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Or where you come from, where your blueprint is entirely different.
Yeah.
Right. Again, we talked about that last session. Like, it's family. What is the definition of family? Family might be a chosen family, because my blood family is disrespectful and doesn't adhere to my own boundaries. That looks different. Well, family to maybe someone else is like the person that's there all the time and it's loyal regardless. I have blinders on. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if I break my boundaries. Doesn't matter if all these things.
That's
right.
different.
So if we have two different definitions of family,
Yeah.
we're going to show up in the room a little different.
Yeah.
So let's get on the same page.
Yeah. hence having those agreements. It's a
Yes.
shared contract.
Mhm.
And we have to, at the beginning stages, learn those things. If you're 20 years in, that's okay, but keep asking those questions. Like, what do we stand for? What are we agreeing to? What are our morals and values here? Like, what's the glue that's going to hold the ship together so we can create actions and what we're going to do when things get sticky, when things get tough, when there's sharks in the water, when things get shiny.
Yes.
This is the glue that holds us together. We do these things and we make these contracts because things are going to get sticky and shiny and distracting. What's going to happen?
Right.
For sure.
And I feel like if there's anything, and you can probably tap into this, Alannah, too, but like, if there's anything I wish I would have learned sooner was that, is like have agreements that it's not just Disneyland and fairy tales and your knight in shining armor or, the beautiful goddess. It doesn't matter who they are, but it's this like wild fairy tale. Love is the most beautiful thing in the whole world.
Yeah.
I say sometimes you can't help who you fall in love with.
Yeah.
But the most epic thing in the world to me now is that I get to choose to love my partner every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't really quote unquote choose to fall in love with her. It just happened.
Yeah.
It was the most amazing, epic, euphoric thing. And then today I get to say, built on that hormonal place and chemical driven area, I get to choose to do that every day.
Yeah. Because it is choice.
Yes.
And it is conditional.
Yes.
Relationships are conditional. They have conditions upon which they will flourish or not. And so love may not be, depends on how you define love, but relationships for sure are conditional.
Yes.
And so we need to decide what the criteria, the conditions that we agree to make this thing flourish long term. Yeah. And to piggyback on what you just said, when you start that process, it feels really hard.
Yeah.
All these conditions and all these rules and what are we doing and all the attunement and learning each other. Okay, it is hard at the beginning. It's a lot of stuff to learn, a lot of stuff to process, a lot of stuff to create. And then once we've been doing it for a long enough time, I'm still creating rules and conditions and agreements. We're still altering ours on a regular basis, but it's easier, way easier because you're like, it's what we do. It's what we do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so like parents, I'm like, help your teenage kid.
Yes. Yes.
Well, and that's the key, I think, is you're looking for comfort. You're looking for it to be easy.
Yeah.
You're looking for it to be routine. And it's great when you can hit those places, but you're always going to hit the place where it's not easy at all. And you feel like roommates, or you feel like you're a different person, or, and how do you choose to come back and figure out what you guys are now?
Yeah.
Because it changes after kids, it changes after you get married, it changes after one of you goes through menopause, it changes like so many
job,
times.
whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. You want the easy, do the hard.
Yeah.
Yes. We say
Easy
that
comes.
lean out, right? So typically where you want to lean in is what feels comfy,
Mhm.
right? I'd rather lean into that place that like makes me feel safe and really comfy. But what's true is we have all these parts that come from a lot of crap.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or otherwise. It's just parts that go like, I'd rather stay protected in this little box,
Mhm.
and that feels nicer. So I say to people, when you feel like leaning into that comfortable place, lean out.
Yeah.
Lean out and just pause. And go like, actually, what am I scared of?
Yeah.
Let's lean there.
Yeah.
Give that pause, give that moment of hesitation, because in that breath, you'll see, oh, am I leaning there because that's my, my avoidant behavior, or maybe my anxious attachment, or whatever it is. You can slap a label on it,
Mhm.
but it's just like, that makes me feel better because this moment is really uncomfortable. So I'm going to pack my shit and run and not deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay, fair, go for it. This creature will keep rearing its
Yes.
ugly
Keep
head,
going.
right? So take a pause. The thing that's going to make me feel comfy is probably not going to serve you.
Yeah. It's not going to grow you.
No, there's no evolve or grow.
No.
With athletes, I say you're playing small.
Yeah.
Don't play small. You want to hit a big stage. You want to, excel in your athletics. Play big.
Yeah.
You want to play big. That means I got to do stuff that makes me scared.
Yeah.
Right. I got to lift heavier, run harder.
Yep.
Narrow down my diet, all my training, blah, blah, blah. That's hard work.
Yeah.
So play big.
Yeah.
So your relationship is the same way. If I want to play small, that means I lean out.
Yeah.
Or I lean into the things that don't really scare me, that make me feel comfy. That's playing small.
Yeah.
If I want to evolve and grow and get bigger in my relationship, that means I lean out.
Yeah.
Take a second and I go, what's the actual thing that's scaring me?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Finally there.
Yeah. And it's hard and it's scary and it's badass.
Yes.
Right? When I see people who have married for a long time, I'm like, they're badasses. Like you did, because for sure you're doing those things. You're leaning into hard stuff on a regular basis, making those choices, doing those things. Yeah. It's badass to lean into the scary and the hard.
Yeah. And recognize and notice it is fun.
Yeah.
And it is scary.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable.
And sometimes cool shit comes from being scared.
Yes. Muscles grow from, fatigue, from being burnt, from being pushed harder.
Yeah, true. Absolutely.
The moral of the story is don't wait, lean in,
Yeah.
have agreements, have really clear, transparent agreements on what are thirds, because they can be all the things.
Come
Dogs,
get a parenting plan
kids.
done before you have parents.
Yes, please.
Before you have kids.
Please get a parenting plan before you have kids.
Yeah.
Have a discussion, because it's good to have a map.
Yeah.
Get a map. Same with when you're getting married. I get a map. If you have
Mhm.
no idea what you're doing, get a map. And be mindful of who you get the maps from.
Yes.
Make sure you're getting maps from people that know what they're talking about, or they're master couples or master parents you consider, people that know what they're doing. Like I didn't get maps from people that, crash their cars often.
Yeah, you want people that align with your values, align with what you stand for,
Yeah.
like you said before.
Yeah.
For sure.
And know that it's forever changing. And it's
Always
Yep.
changing.
and couples counseling is not for when things are on fire.
No.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
And B, when it's like, oh, hey, we've been in this for a while, we're kind of getting a little serious. Like, let's create this space where maybe I'm not really good at creating those agreements.
Yeah.
And then go sit with someone and say, like, hey, what can those look like?
Yeah.
You tell someone to be like, I want you to look at your relationship with some of those things. Look at it as like a business arrangement.
Totally.
You're sitting down at the table, objectively, who's doing the dishes, who likes to do laundry, nobody likes to clean the bathrooms. We'll hire that out. Let's do this, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's have a really
How's your
good
communication?
conversation.
How's your sex life? How's your
Yes.
intimacy?
Yeah.
How's your
Right.
repair? How's safety? All the things.
How we want to go through those things. So don't be scared to come in and just get guidance. Doesn't mean you're gonna come see us every week because you're falling apart.
No,
at the
come once a
seams.
year just to check in.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah,
It's-
we do. I do.
It's the best place possible to come and learn some of these skills that you probably weren't taught.
Oh, yeah, no,
Because
absolutely.
in my
not.
brain, I'm like, this is new stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
There's a reason why marriages fail most of the time. Because you're
Yes.
not taught this stuff. So, but we have good data, maps. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. See you next time.
Thanks so much for joining us.
We're really glad you're here with us on this journey.
The best way to support this podcast is to subscribe and give it a 5-star review.
See you next time.
This has been a Bread Dog Studios production.